Welcome everybody to Self-Storage Income and the PSA or an LOI. And I know you're probably going, what did you just say? Like I just threw a bunch. So, okay, we're talking about the difference between a letter of intent versus the actual purchase sale agreement. Why you use at what time, different ones, why an LOI would even be necessary, and what that process looks like. You find a good deal, then you want to go into it, you want to get it under contract.
Mm-hmm. What does
Connor,
that mean?
what does that mean? Like, let's talk about this. The difference between an LOI, PSA, and then how we utilize these things in the actual transaction, getting something under contract, looking at the deal. Mm-hmm. Why not just jump into a PSA? All the above.
Really good questions, man. And this is stuff that we see in our community all the time. People are curious on the time frames. Like,
yes,
when do you do the LOI versus PSA? And what does the process in between look like? How do you navigate these things? And it's really important not only to streamline things for you, but to also streamline things for the seller and to make sure that you guys aren't spending a ton of money going back and forth
with attorneys
and all this other stuff, which we'll get to some of that. But all said and done, that's another thing that we wanted to talk about is you always hear this, right? You're like, the deals, I got this deal under contract. We actually had this guy I was talking to, and he's like, yeah, I got this thing under contract, and you know, the sellers agreed to sell it to me for this price and this. And I was like, cool, man, like that sounds great. And come to find out, he had no LOI. There was nothing. There was literally no. It was not under contract in any way, shape, or form. It was just a phone conversation of, yeah, sure, I'm interested in selling kind of thing. So we want to definitely outline that. Under contract means that there's some level of agreement with the LOI or the PSA that says, I'm agreeing to sell you this property for X, Y, and Z.
They're very different. As in an LOI and a PSA are not the same thing. So you have to be very careful because of your rights, your obligations, and both the sellers, right? Because that's a big thing with this is it's a communication tool.
100%. Yep. So the LOIs, it's really important to note that those are non-binding documents. You can't take that to the bank essentially, right?
Nope. It doesn't mean he can't sell it to
100%.
somebody else.
Yep.
It doesn't. That's not a legal binding document. An LOI is not.
Yep, exactly right. And so you might be saying, well, then why the freak would I do that? Like, why would I waste my time and effort and energy to do it? Well, you're actually going to save a lot of time and effort and energy by putting together an LOI, which is going to say it's your letter of intent, again, that outlines your sale price, maybe some time frames, how you're going to fund it, what the plans are at a very high level, almost like the bullet point list of, it's like a couple page document essentially that's like, hey, I'd like to buy your property for X amount of money. I'm going to put X amount down. I want to have you seller finance some. Just outlines the high level details.
And two, not just that level. I like to think of it also as the deal breakers. Like these are usually the stuff that it's like, no, like if we don't agree upon this, we don't even have a deal. Like these are the fundamentals, the main things that you're going to care about and the seller's going to care about, that LOI will really outline and hit. So you know you agree. We're on the same page.
Exactly. And man, the reason why that's so important for you guys is because you can't draft up a purchase and sale agreement, and you shouldn't draft one up until you know and agree on those terms. Right? So great point where it's like you want to outline all of your asks and everything that makes sense to you in the deal. And again, taking into account all the feedback you've got from and conversations you've got from the seller, the broker, whatever that is, and saying, hey, you said they were open to seller financing. Here's a couple seller financing options. And would you say to like, you could submit more than one LOI and say, hey, here's 3 different options for you to choose from, Mr. Seller. There's a seller finance deal. There's a seller finance with some conventional. And then here's like an SBA with some seller finance, like whatever it might be, to just show them some different options, but essentially you getting that same outcome of securing an awesome deal.
Yeah. And what's important to you doesn't necessarily mean it's important to the seller and vice versa. Like price is a perfect example. you may be willing to pay more predicated on the terms. And the seller, they're driven by not just price. And I think we forget about that a lot. So just because you have the highest price doesn't mean that you're going to win. And that actually doesn't mean that solves a lot of the seller's problems. So when you look at an LOI, when we go out and you have that discussion and you say, hey, listen, I would like to buy your property, but I need a certain amount of time to get it done. And the seller goes, well, all right, I'm willing to sell it to you, at this price. And let's say you just kind of agree on those things. Well, then you're going to go back and you're going to say, all right, we had this conversation, right? You agreed at $1 million. That's what he said he wanted to sell it for, which I'm fine with. But I know I have to get the capital and I have to get a bank. And so what I'm going to need is I'm going to need time. That's going to be really important for me, right? I need 120 plus days to actually get that done or I can't do it. And so then you're going to go and create an LOI that says, hey, you're going to sell it to me at $1 million. I need X amount of time to get this done. What does that include, right? And then when does the money go hard? How much am I putting down? This main thing that you guys discussed and fill in the areas that maybe you didn't, but once again are going to be deal breakers. He may go, well, yeah, but I want $500,000 down. And you're like, I can't do that, right? That's why I need longer time. And the sellers are going to mix between optimizing price and lowering risk, as in the odds of it not closing or going through. You are going to try to minimize price, like get less than you pay for, and optimize your time to do it, to execute, to have options, right? And so there's these main points that are naturally at conflict between buyers and sellers. You want to come to an agreement on them. And then you put that into the document, right? And then we'll even sign it. They can sign it. It doesn't mean that that's binding, though. But that would be what you then give to the attorneys. So it is the outline of the main points that the PSA will be made from. You really don't want two attorneys making a deal.
Yeah.
Because you'll never get a deal done.
No.
Right?
And that's so funny because that's one of the bullet points on here is don't let attorneys kill the deal. Because it freaking happens.
You need to have the agreement done before the attorneys start to go through a PSA. A huge portion of that stuff in that PSA, the buyer and the seller won't care about.
Right.
It is just legal. It's stuff you have to do, right? Yep. This is actual things that you got to execute and you got to pull off. That needs to go into it, but that's not what you and the seller should be deciding. That is for the attorneys to figure out and get done.
You don't want them trying to figure out and argue back and forth between each other about, well, this contract says tomato and this one says tomato, and just having that constant back and forth, and it happens all the time. And dude, there's that saying that deals or that time kills all deals.
Yes,
and it's absolutely true, man. If you start just going through that timeline and you're not executing or getting something done, which is another point to what you were talking about, the sell price not always being the biggest and most important thing. Yeah. It's the ability to actually get in and execute and do the deal that you intend to do.
Yeah.
That's really, really important to sellers, really important to brokers.
They don't get paid if not.
Oh, dude.
And two, if you have a deal that falls out of contract, everybody, especially over the last 3 years, that falls out of contract, it gets relisted. Lots of times that's selling at a lower price now. So 100%. That cost to that seller is real.
Yeah.
And time is obviously money too. And opportunity is a real deal for you. So you really need to reassure that seller on your ability to close, what you're going to do, and what you need to get it done. That is a large driver of why sellers will choose different buyers, even at a lower cost. And we've had this a lot.
I was going to say,
we offered $300,000 less than the other guy, and they went with us. And a lot of that shows up in the terms. So one of the things you may do is you may say, okay, I'm not willing to pay you $1 million. I'll pay you $900,000, but I'm going to close in 90 days and I'll put $100,000 down that goes hard in 30 days, right? So then the strength of your offer comes in confidence. And so because you're executing it quicker though, you're like, I want a better deal. So there's these different advantages you can have. Whereas if you're like, I need a lot of time, and there's just time, there's more risk. So if you need a lot of time, that seller may go, hold on here, because once I lock it up with you, it's off market. And
for
then
months.
For months.
Most likely.
And if it falls through, they're going, oh no, because then all the buyers afterwards will go, there must have been an issue because the buyer walked away. So when they go relist it, people come and look at it, they're going to go, okay, well, what did the last guy that had it under contract, what did he find in his due diligence and everything else that made him walk away?
Oh, dude.
Even if it was his fault.
Yep.
But that really changes that offering to the market. This is a major fear for brokers because they don't get paid, yet they put that expense in.
Oh, man.
And that's their relationship. So, you really got to make sure that you are working closely with that broker. You're building that confidence. And if it's a direct to owner, you're doing the same with the owner. But there is this give and take. And the LOI, you build that out and you make it very clear and you show what the priorities of each party are, what they agree to, and kind of what those realms are. Then you could take it and make it binding. Then you go and have the attorneys work on it. They're expensive, right? Their attorney's going to get it. Your attorneys are going to get it. And if you don't agree on those main points, if the attorneys are sitting there arguing over these issues, these are the make it or break it issues, right? And lots of times they go, it's not even worth it. We're not going to do this. We're not on the same page. The attorneys are coming back like they're not going to agree to it. And then everybody just walks away from the deal. And you don't want that. Lots of people are out trying to buy facilities, small ones that range everywhere from $300,000 to $4 or $5 million. They're worried about getting the money or having the financing. This is why we team up with Live Oak Bank, because they get this. They understand storage. We have them help us underwrite deals for our students and others. They are one of the best people in the industry when it comes to getting loans, especially small business loans. They can actually help the customers when they find the asset, understanding how much debt can I get? What's it going to look like? That changes them from being a bank to being a real asset to the customer. We recommend Live Oak Bank to our students as well as others that are trying to get into the storage business. They have an in-depth knowledge of this asset class. It's more than a bank. It's more than simply getting money. They're actually an asset and a partner to them, helping them go through all the things that they don't know and understand.
And a couple things. You'd mentioned money going hard. That means you cannot get that earnest money down that you may have put down on the deal. So there's that.
If you don't close, you don't get it back.
Exactly. So
and then there's contingencies.
Timelines.
Right? Yeah, really important because you'll lose the money.
Yes.
Then there's contingencies that we like to put into the LOI, right? This is contingent on financing. This is contingent on approval for the city. This is contingent on inspections. There's different things where you go, all right, we'll get it done. We'll get it done in this time. But as a buyer, one of the most important things for me is that clock. So like if we have a due diligence period of time that's shorter, the time frame which our due diligence starts does not go until we get everything we need from the seller.
Yep.
So like you can't go start due diligence and say you have a 60-day due diligence or a 90-day due diligence, whatever it is. But then the seller doesn't even get you all of the information for the first month. You just lost half your time and you can't do due diligence without that information.
I actually saw there was a deal. I was talking to somebody and they had this deal that they'd gotten under contract. Everything was good to go. They'd had it under PSA, and there was a lot of things that were just taking a ton of time to get done on the deal. And the seller hadn't gotten all of the documentation to the buyer, and all this time had gone by, and the seller had assumed like, oh, well, we're outside of the like due diligence time frame. Like, hey, since we're outside of the due diligence time frame, it wasn't retrading, but there was some kind of conversations going on about changing something, and it's like, well, actually, it hasn't even started yet because you haven't provided this, and this
that we need.
Yeah, these things haven't happened yet. So, dude, really, really important pieces to make sure you've got in there. And the other thing is the survey review period. In the PSA, which is another really important aspect, because you can't obviously look at and perform your due diligence on an asset without having your surveys back from those third parties, your ALTAs, zoning reports, property condition reports, those things. And obviously you have no control over when those people actually get them.
You can't close because that's required by the bank.
Yeah.
So that's a big one that we put in. That's a great point. You need those contingencies predicated on third parties because you don't have control over them. So if you have to close in 90 days, but then the bank's requiring you to get these third party reports and they don't come in, now you're stuck. So you want to make sure that if it's not within your ability and your time frame, that you have contingencies for it. Hence, on the owner, and then also on whatever the banks, the cities, whoever needs the third-party reports, those things are contingencies. So if I put $100,000 down or $10,000 or whatever it is, and then my money goes hard in 30 days, but the reports don't come in, or they come back bad, right? Or the bank pulls out, I have these contingencies where now I can get my money back because they're not predicated on me.
Right.
So those are things you really want to understand. And different properties will require different things. I mean, if you have a property that's really run down or you have a lot of questions on it, you may want property surveys done because that property has been linked with other properties on its side. The owner may have ownership in this building here and a residence over here, right? The banks will need that, but then so will obviously you, and those mess up deals quick.
Well,
right?
Dude, and it's amazing how often, I mean, just in my experience, like how often there's been mistakes, even when going through all of these steps, textbook, getting the ALTAs, doing the zoning, having the professionals going out, having the attorneys look at everything, cross-reference ALTAs with this, with that, only to come to find out you've got like a porch that's on somebody else's property or something. And you're
property line. You built 20 feet over the property line, or the previous owner had built 20 feet over the property line. Access was taken away or it wasn't granted. It's shocking. You got this huge asset, all this stuff, and you find out, oh man,
so imagine what you'd miss if you didn't go through the steps, right? AJ, one of the things I wanted to ask you, man, have you ever seen, and what would you do in this circumstance? Let's say you've gone through this LOI discussion, you've got this LOI signed between you and the seller, and you've agreed to these terms, you get this PSA drafted, and then suddenly the seller's coming back with all these other terms that weren't agreed on in the LOI, essentially.
Yeah.
How would you navigate some of that?
Yeah. So one of the things, this is why I like to have an LOI signed. So we can say we agreed upon this, right? The coming back to try to change things, especially those important things, a lot of times that could be driven by an attorney as well, right? The attorney's like, oh, you don't want to do this. You don't want it. And that's where you pull out this LOI and you're like, hold on here. We had an agreement and you signed on, right? We're now paying and you're trying to change in the middle of it. Like what is going on here? Why, this is bad faith, essentially. That's not retrading. This is bad faith. So why are you dealing in bad faith? It's not a good sign. It's a big red flag. And you want to understand where the seller's head's at. Like, why is this something we're going to be dealing with? Right? Lots of times this can be big red flags where the seller, and we've had this literally say, I don't want to be exclusive because I want to keep my options open. And I'm like, what?
You can't do that.
Like, I have to pay for this stuff. We have to actually work and get things done to go to close.
Crazy.
And you could just sell it out to somebody else. And they're like, well, it's my property. I own it. I should have that ability and those rights. Well, we're like, okay, then we're not buying. Like, I can't go into this right? We have everybody working and you just sell it if somebody else comes along, if a better opportunity happens to come. So there can be red flags that show you where the seller's head's at, how serious they really are. I have seen, this is rare, but I have seen sellers try to trap people into keeping their like down payment. All of a sudden, they want things like, oh, I want the down payment to go hard immediately, and they don't want to have anything holding them. Like I don't want
no contingencies.
Contingencies. And two, I don't want any time frames to get you information. No, I'll get it to you, right? If we can. And we actually had one that they never ever provided the information. Then they wanted the down payment. They're like, your money went hard. And we're like, we don't even have rent rolls. Like we don't even, you didn't even provide anything, right? Like, it doesn't matter. We want to go. So you got to be careful of those things. That's rare. But it can and does happen, especially when you guys are working directly with the owner. Yeah. So if you're working with a good broker who understands storage, is in the storage industry, right? Which we do a lot. Obviously we do in our community, and our brokers even bring those deals. We know that there's someone to mediate that, as in the broker is holding accountable and is making sure that when you go and that seller is at the table, that broker is representing and getting rid of all that issues, confusion. So you know when you're doing a deal, you're actually what you're getting and what the seller really wants. And the broker will hold those things kind of together. When you don't have that third party and it's just the owner and you're sitting there just kind of negotiating over a kitchen table, and you really want to see here where their head's at and what kind of seller they are. There's different kinds of sellers. The seller that is all sell, if you'll pay me so much, it's stupid. Okay. Or I'm selling to see what's out there, but I really don't want to sell, so I don't want to be locked up, right? Or no, I'm a real seller. I need to sell. I have other things, and here's what I'm doing and why I need the money. And here's what I need out of the property. Here's the reasons. And then you can cater that LOI and PSA to them because they have other reasons to sell just besides the fact they're getting a lot of money, which that's actually the majority of reason people sell. I view that as, when we sit down with somebody, I want to know, are you a real seller? Are you a convenience seller, right? Or are you a pay me to walk away seller? Very different. And that will be reflected in price and terms a lot. And I see newbies particularly, they want to get the deal done so bad and they don't really understand the process that they will do things that nobody else will do with a seller who's not really that interested in selling. And that can get them in trouble a lot. But they're kind of being led on. Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a hope and a dream. And so this LOI, that's what that's meant to clear up. And then you want to take that and be able to navigate off that. That is the blueprint for how the deal will get done. And that blueprint, right, is a combination of time, risk, penalties, and you also have price, obviously, and what the PSA needs to be addressing. So some of those things could be at odds with each other. And so the PSA then needs to go into detail and outline and really work through all that. You may add, different things that are important to you, but you don't want the LOI to be huge.
Right. Yeah.
That's totally not the purpose of it, right?
For sure.
You do not want the LOI to try to be like a preliminary PSA. In fact, that will hurt you more than help you.
For sure. Yeah, it'll make things seem a lot more complicated than they need to be.
And drive the sellers away.
Oh, yeah. It could be a red flag for the sellers and be like, nah, actually, I'm going to go with the guy that gave me the one pager. And that seems a lot more clear cut and all that stuff. And I mean, to that point, you made a really good mention about working with a broker who's specific in self-storage. really, really important thing to note there. Also we talked a lot about and mentioned it, attorneys a lot.
Yes.
Really, really important to utilize the correct attorneys, correct brokers for these transactions. They're not created equal. They're not the same.
Not even
just
close.
because they have titles that relate or are similar. Make sure you're working with those people who have done these transactions before, and isn't just your friends, spouses, whatever. That does this every now and then or on the weekends or whatever. Again, you want to really make sure that you can get in there, execute, do what needs to be done, eliminate waste, eliminate time frames as much as you can, and get the deal done. You don't want to prolong anything for you or for the seller, for the broker, any of that. And obviously, you don't want to waste your
makes or
freaking
breaks
time,
deals.
dude.
It makes or breaks deals. Are you a new self-storage investor and want to know what that facility is worth, what the risk is, how to underwrite it? Well, that's exactly what we do in a feasibility study. A feasibility study, we actually look at the market for you. We look at the finances, the underwriting, we show you where the upside is, the downside, and all the risk. That is actually what you can provide to banks to get capital and investors. It's a big worksheet which most banks actually require. So if you want to know what a storage facility is worth that you're looking at, come to us, follow the link in the show notes, and we will tell you. I think an important part of this is the negotiating. And this is the point, is you negotiate at the LOI.
Mm-hmm.
The PSA, you want to whittle that down to be negotiating as little as possible, right? That's not where the negotiations you really want to be taking place. The PSA is the follow-up of what was committed, promised.
Great point.
And what you already negotiated. You get through the deal and through potential ones quicker, but you can weed through the ones that aren't real, aren't deals for you, without incurring huge amount of cost and time.
Dude, exactly. Because this stuff isn't cheap, man. I mean, you're talking hundreds of
it
dollars
is
an
not.
hour to go through these things. What would you say you've seen are some of the common friction points between buyers and sellers? It just is like almost every time there's these common things that come up, and how can people prepare for those things?
Yeah. You always have a risk portion that is always debated. So you're shifting risk one way or another. That's all you're doing. So how much you put down, when does that go hard, the time frame the deal has, everything from disclosures. This is all about who is incurring risk along the way. The optimization is that both people are giving up a little. So, all right, I'm going to give up here and you're going to give up there. Where you run into problems, and what I say is when it gets too one-sided.
Yeah.
So sellers, that the terms, the price, it's like my way or the highway kind of thing. That is, those are red flags, and everybody will run into this, right? The other problem you have is perception, obviously, of value and how that is accurately being portrayed. So if you're not working, especially once again with the broker, even your idea of what to pay and what the value is gets tough. And we see this all the time. We had one of the members of our inner circle. The guy wants me to give him a price. I'm like, okay, what's the revenue? He won't tell me. What's the expenses? He won't tell me. And I'm like, well, then
how are you going to value that?
How can you even come up with the value? And he's like, I told him that too. He's like, I don't know. And the guy's like, well, I want to know what I'm dealing with here. And so I want you to throw a price out to see if I can see. And
playing hardball. Never give the number first, guys.
Yeah. And so I think that when you look at the brokers also that's included, the experience of the broker, how well they know the industry, and how well they know that contact, meaning that is this a seller that they have been working for? Some of these brokers, they'll know these sellers for years.
Right.
And then when they bring them to the table, they know what that seller wants and needs. It's not really a question. That's okay. The seller we've got him here to the table. Where other times the broker literally is just almost the listing agent. So they're just there to list it. And you can see in the numbers and all sorts of stuff, it's almost not very serious. They don't have a relationship with them. I list it, and if it sells, great. Right? That's going to really change the dynamics of the LOI and the PSA, because you're going to be running off of a lot more limited information, where the brokers that have worked with them present them. They know this is the property. Here's what's going on with the property. Here's CapEx. Here's problems. I know that we have 3 years tax returns. Here's where we're pulling out spending that doesn't need to be in it. Here's what the real expense ratio is. Here's what taxes are going to change. There's a lot of things that can filter out. If you don't have that, there's going to be a lot of data accruing and gathering. And the more that you have to get, the more that you are running into a problem with that valuation. And so people going in on limited information, then agree in an LOI on a price, and then 2 months later, they're going, what was presented to me is not reality. And so we agree to this price under the assumption that the information that you've given us is correct.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, when is it appropriate to go back to a seller during that due diligence, during your survey review, and to say that exact thing? Like when you run into those hurdles and say, okay, well, this isn't, like, how do you navigate that? It's like, this is not the way it was represented.
Yeah, it should be spelled out beforehand. And this is probably the biggest hurdle that people get in. They agree to something, they get into it and realize that that something was not really represented. And I see sellers make mistakes in this too, because what they'll do is they'll say, well, there needs to be CapEx. Like, oh, well, I want to have paved aisleways and you have gravel. And the sellers are like, but that has nothing to do with me. So you're buying it off of net income. That is something you want. That's a value add, but that's not what I'm selling. So then you get into this, well, what CapEx would actually draw down the value? So what CapEx would I get into this and go, I need to lower that price because there needs to be work done, versus the CapEx that you want done? And this is the other issue that I see both in negotiations after the LOI is done, but also the problem that people get themselves into. They either don't know what to say or what to ask for, or it becomes a big thing. So we always ask too, maintenance, are there anything that's broken, right? That's part of all of it. So this
leaking.
Yeah, leaking. The price is dependent on you providing us, right, verification of what you stated is real. It is dependent on the those things being correct. So if you say you're representing you have a 40% expense ratio, right? All of that stuff is accurate. And also you providing us a list of any deferred maintenance. So what are the things that need to be done that haven't been done? And how I look at the deferred maintenance, the CapEx, the representation of it, if it is things that need to be actually done and working that you're stating are to generate that income in which we derive the value from, then that is something you can go back to the owner on. For example, says, I have 50 units and I have 90% occupancy, right? And you go back after it's for sale, find out that out of those 50 units, 5 of the doors are completely broken and don't work. So those units can't even do anything. You can't even sell them, rent them. Well, hold on here. I was buying 50 rentable units. So that's something that I go back. Now, if it was, yeah, but I want a gate. Okay, but I'm getting this net income today and I don't have a gate. That's not what I'm selling. That's an add-on that you want to either get more. It doesn't matter what you want it for. You just want it, right? But if the net income isn't dependent on that change, then I can't go back to the owner and ask for price, or I shouldn't, right? I shouldn't be retrading it. I retrade meaning after we've agreed, I go back to change the price, which our firm, we do not do. I don't believe in that. I don't like doing that. I think that makes our firm less trustworthy. If we agree to something, we agree to something. Unless what we agreed upon was not represented. If you have a gate and they represent, we have a gate and the gate's broken.
Right.
The gate has to be fixed before we buy it, or you have to give us a discount so we can pay, right, to get the gate fixed because you represented that that's what I was buying and it worked.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at the CapEx, right? Is this a difference? And I see a lot of people, this is a huge friction point, and I see it on the problems of sellers and buyers, where buyers misrepresent massively and sellers use it as simply a way to drive down price because they've got the owner stuck.
Yeah.
And neither one of those are good. It shouldn't be used like that. So I see that value friction come into play once you go into due diligence, and then you're arguing about the drivers of the value. In the LOI, how you get over that is that representation. You are representing that you are selling, a storage facility, 100 units, that has a gate, that has, all these things, and you're 90% full. This is your revenue. This is your expense. The value is tied to that. So as long as what you have presented and the value is represented accurately, then that's the price. We're not going to come back. If it's not, that's when we come back and we use it in the PSA and the LOI to say, no, we're not just asking for money off. It was, you said I was buying this and I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not getting what you stated.
Showed up to buy the BMW and they've got the Geo Metro sitting there. You're like,
yeah,
hey, this is not a BMW.
This is not what we agreed to here, right? And that needs to be in the contract or outlined, or they're going to go, well, I don't care. You agreed to that price.
Yep.
Because you assume that what you think, they think, right? That's not true. The seller may go, well, I don't care. That was the price I wanted.
Yeah.
And you said you'd pay it.
Right.
I don't care if that building's burned down.
And
you saw it. And like, why is this my problem?
Yeah.
Right. So if that's not in the PSA, they may go, your money's hard. You're not getting it back.
Mm-hmm.
That had nothing to do with anything. Whereas we need to have it in the contract to say, no, you misrepresented.
Right.
And so that isn't what I'm getting.
Yeah.
That's why these things are really, really important. The due diligence period is the verification of value and what is made up of that value, of everything that you were told that was represented, and that you can buy it, get it done, that it is actually what you agreed to. Mm-hmm. And then it is a time for you to get all your reports for the verification, both for you, but also the banks, and get the financing and everything lined up for you to do it.
Yep.
I see the friction and deals fall out when those two things are really at odds. And sometimes they're not at odds. Just one party is trying to get an edge.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
deals fall apart. The further away you get from that original, obviously it compounds and going up. You're going to really frustrate brokers, by the way, too. Don't do this to brokers. Don't surprise that broker in your 90-day contract. You're going to close and you come back and say, yeah, well, you know what? We've decided that by concrete or whatever, I want, $15,000 off or whatnot. Like, don't do that. Don't utilize a position of a contract. And when you have somebody, that's not trustworthy.
Right.
That's not being upfront. That's not being honest. If you agree to something, go through with it.
100%. The world is super small, man. And you go building a reputation like that, it's going to get around and you're going to find yourself
quickly
running out of deals and running out of friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, really good points, man. So I'm looking at a deal, looking at a market, things look good. Did you ever have like a hesitation to just submit the LOI? Like when is it like I'm pulling the trigger, LOI is going out today?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons you can use an LOI, and I see, and I have done using an LOI is like get the conversation, use it as a tactic to be able to buy. Seller's not responding. You're super interested in the deal. So instead, all right, here's the price. Here's the deal. Send it to them and say, I'm ready to buy. It shows that you're serious.
Yeah.
Right? And that you're actually here. And that may initiate that conversation where the owner's like, hey, I got your offer. Let me counter offer real quick. Right? As opposed to just being a blank call.
Right.
Oh, want to sell your facility? Right? No, be serious.
The 10th one they've got today.
Exactly. So that's a good way to get that conversation going and be serious about it to get that owner to move and to take notice of you and to start that dialogue and conversation. I've used that and I see that a lot, and it could be a really efficient tool for it.
Dude, that's incredible, because I think there's hesitation when there's any kind of anything that looks or sounds like a contract and you're signing it and it's going out. And I think for those of us that haven't done it before, there might be that hesitation there. So not to say
LOI
that
is non-binding.
Yeah.
It's like the LOI is where you want the negotiating.
Exactly.
So
and not
start
to say that you
negotiating.
should go out and just throw LOIs to everybody you meet,
No.
but definitely use it as a tool to get those conversations going. That is awesome. Any parting words of wisdom for those out there getting their LOIs and PSAs put together?
Only other
getting
thing
deals
is,
done?
I mean, I guess there's some instances, we'll use some instances where we don't need an LOI because the broker has already said this is exactly what they want. And we say, this is exactly what we want. And that it's so clear the broker's done all the work.
Yeah.
And we have it that we're like, nope, we agree. We have it all in email. And then we just go, okay, here's the PSA, right? So once again, the LOI is a tool and it's an important tool. It's more the less experience you are, the less experience the seller is. And if you don't have a broker, especially, but also a broker with little experience, especially in self-storage, that becomes a lot more important.
No, it really does, man. And I mean, going back to what you were just talking about a minute ago, where you get two people arguing about what's, CapEx or not, or all these different pieces. If you don't have a well-experienced and knowledgeable guide to help through some of that stuff and help the seller especially, or even you, like navigate some of those things, because you might... people are freaking emotional human beings, especially somebody who either owned the facility or so eager to go buy their first one. You might think that they're trying to screw you over on this thing, but they're really not. They're really just not. They might be trying to actually help you in some way. Like there's so many different things. So, dude, if you strongly suggest you have those people in your corner that have been there, done it before, and can navigate it, because, man, you get two people in a room that don't know.
It's going to cause problems.
Oh, dude. That can blow up fast, man.
Really fast. The better attorney you have will make deals happen. The better the broker you have will make deals happen. It'll save you time, money, and a whole lot of pain and a whole lot of headache, and get you to actually completing and buying deals. You can waste a lot of time.
Yeah. And you can never get that back, dude.
Nope. Opportunity cost is huge.
Huge, man. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to check out those show notes. Check out the links in the show notes that we have down there for you. All kinds of resources, links to things that could be of benefit. We've got our community. We've got all these different resources for you guys to help navigate through all of these things, from buying to selling to operating, every bit of it. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Appreciate you.